What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin and Markets. And my dog is barking in the background. Sorry about that. I'm going to maximize the screen here for, let me share the screen first, then maximize it for the guys over there on Telegram. What's up, guys? If you are new to the channel, this is bitcoinandmarkets.com. I've been doing this podcast since 2016, put out this weekly newsletter for a very long time, and we are going to go through it today. Every Monday, we get the Bitcoin Fundamentals Report. This is number 280. Going out on Telegram, that's my main community, so you can check that out, t.me/Bitcoin and Markets. The link should be down in the description. Also, YouTube and Rumble. Like, comment, subscribe. I will check the chat towards the end here, and we'll go back and forth answering some questions, some Q&A. So, bitcoinandmarkets.com is the homepage, but also I do write for Bitcoin Magazine Pro, bmpro.substack.com. So I put out one lengthy piece every week, as well as two different dashboard type pieces. And you can see we have break it down with all the miners, hash rate growth, revenue trends, key insights. We have the mining activity going on. What are those stats? Key insights about network traffic, chart of the day. Let's bring this up. So this was the mining chart of the day last week. So that would be Friday. And this is the WGMI. That's the Valkyrie Bitcoin Miner ETF. You can see the high from the launch of the ETF is all the way up here. We are running into this kind of Fibonacci retracement resistance, but we were bouncing off the 50-day moving average, 50% retracement. And so those are the kind of charts that you guys can get over there on bmpro.substack.com. I also was interested about this because I didn't know that this Bitcoin miner ETF had a bunch of chip manufacturers in it as well, like TSMC, AMD, and others. So it's kind of an interesting play. All right, let's go back to bitcoinandmarkets.com, and we're going to get right into it. Let me zoom in here a little bit. And I'm going to maximize the screen for you guys over on Telegram. Now on Telegram, sometimes when I switch between tabs, you'll get a blank screen. I know that. I don't know how to fix it other than plugging in Telegram into Restream, which is the streaming software. And I've done that before, and it also had bugs. So this is the best thing that I can figure out right now. Okay, Bitcoin Fundamentals Report. I always start off with a meme. Of course, this week we had the big story was the Vanguard CEO, Tim Buckley, stepped down. And so, we'll go into that here a little bit, but that is the meme of the week. Also start off with a snapshot of Bitcoin. So consolidation at the top. Of course, we'll look at the price chart. We'll talk about all-time highs. We'll talk about all this stuff. But, we're going through the stages of this newsletter. And so really, we talk about headlines and Bitcoin and macro, price, mining, layer 2, if there's something interesting going on with layer 2. But we work our way through that here on Monday's live stream. Okay, media sentiment is neutral. I could have put it positive because some of the stuff that happened with Bitcoin mining this week. But overall, I think it's still neutral. There's a lot of no coiners. There's a lot of doubt still in the market. It's amazing that so many people are on, CNBC and stuff like that are positive for Bitcoin. But there's still a lot of people out there that are completely anti-Bitcoin, think it's a bubble and all that. So I would say the media sentiment is still neutral right now. Network traffic is moderate. We'll talk about the mempool and all that down below. Mining industry is stable. Days until halving 44. Of course, that's a moving target. So different places might have 45 days, 44 days. It's maybe even some 43, but roughly 44 days. Price section. At the time of writing, 66,622. That's almost a $12,000 rise since the last issue. So in 1 week, 21.9%. Huge week. I think this is interesting because about 3 weeks ago or so, I was saying that I thought that coming week was going to be the big week for Bitcoin. That this is what I was expecting from that week a couple weeks ago. it came now. So this was a huge week. Of course, we'll take a look at the price. Market cap 1.3 trillion. We're going to get to 2 trillion before you know it. That's going to be pretty awesome. Satoshis per dollar at the time of writing was exactly 1,500. Finny, that's my denomination of Bitcoin, 1/10,000th of a Bitcoin. So right in the middle of the decimal places. I'm trying to get that to catch on. Was $6.66. When Bitcoin is 100,000, this will be $10. So you can see how that works. It's a nice denomination there of Bitcoin. Previous difficulty adjustment was negative 2.9%, and the next estimated adjustment is negative 1% in approximately 10 days. The mempool increased from 190 megabytes last week up to 251 megabytes this week. Of course, the fees are going to be a little bit higher, $4.53 to get in the next block at the time of writing. This varies quite drastically during the day, but that's 49 sats per virtual byte. Low priority fee, so to get in within an hour or so into the be confirmed into the blockchain is $4.07. So you can save yourself a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal. Okay, Lightning capacity. I've been tracking this for a year now or so, and it keeps going down. And I mean, maybe the actual dollar value in capacity is going up, but you can see the Bitcoin capacity continues to fall. I think last week we were down over 1%. This week we're down almost 1%. Just every week we're losing Bitcoins out of the Lightning Network. And it's kind of sad that it's just not catching on like we thought it would. It is consolidating to big players, Channels also down about 0.5%, 55,293, down exactly 200 channels between the two issues here. Okay. In case you missed it, my content, Bitcoin Magazine Pro, I wrote the Bitcoin Market Surge, Unraveling the Mystery of Mr. 100 and Sovereign Buyers. I did see some people talking about Qatar again, or Qatar, and like one of the finance minister or something visited Nayib Bukele down there in El Salvador. Max Kaiser said, hey, this is the rumor that they're buying Bitcoin. There's a lot of coincidences around Qatar and Bitcoin. So Larry Fink visited, I think let's see. It was, sorry, hold on, I got to think. It was April of 2023. Larry Fink visited this finance minister from Qatar. He goes over to the Middle East a lot, but he specifically met with this guy back in April. And then what happens? June, they apply for their ETF. 2 months later. Also in September, this Qatari finance minister, he went to El Salvador previously, probably talked about Bitcoin, and now he's going back. So it's just interesting that there's all these meetings. I mean, he probably has meetings with a lot of people, but yeah, there is a timeline out there where Qatar could be stacking Bitcoin. So I take a look at that for Bitcoin Magazine Pro, of course, the market and the mining dashboards. My own premium content here on bitcoinandmarkets.com. Bitcoin breaks all-time high in 4 major currencies, USD next, and that should have a question mark. We'll get to the price. Community streams, my most recent blog posts. Okay, now we're into the headline section. So I start off with the Bitcoin headlines, then I go into macro headlines. Some weeks, like I said last week, some weeks have more Bitcoin, less macro. Some weeks have more macro, less Bitcoin. The last couple of weeks have been a lot less macro. It's almost like we're in this holding pattern going into March. People are holding their breath a little bit in the macro space. So Bitcoin, there's a lot going on in Bitcoin. But anyway, okay, so the Vanguard CEO, Tim Buckley, to retire. I think he's officially going to leave at the end of the year, but they are looking immediately for a replacement on his day-to-day activities. So just weeks after Vanguard doubled down on keeping their clients from accessing the Bitcoin ETFs or launching their own product, Tim Buckley is stepping down as CEO after 30 years with the company. Now, I don't think this is directly attributable to their Bitcoin stance. A lot of people say it is, like that meme up top with the finger flicking Vanguard. I don't think it's directly attributable to Bitcoin because they came out and said this is not going to change their stance. I think they were just wanting a change. This guy's been around a long time. One of their big initiatives over the last few years has been to increase their international business, and he's failed to do that. So you guys can check out some more about that in the link in the bullet point to the story. But this is important. So it's not directly attributable. However, it does look that way. So it doesn't have to be actually about Bitcoin. The appearance is there. BlackRock has made it okay and smart to invest in Bitcoin. And the unintended inference from Vanguard is now your career might depend on it. Double whammy here, getting you from both sides. So then I just have this image. Okay, next headline, all-time high in euros. This happened this morning. And last week I reported on the new FUD from the ECB. The blog post was titled ETF Approval for Bitcoin, the Naked Emperor's New Clothes. And I just plotted that. So this is where the article came out here on the 22nd of February. And it's gone up 30% in euros since then, breaking the previous all-time high. I mean, just big L's all around for Bitcoin skeptics right now. And this is one of the biggest, in my opinion. The US dollar all-time high is very important, but all-time highs in other currencies is also important from a demand perspective and the propensity to hold. So what do I mean by that? It's hard to express exactly what I mean by that. It's hard to say this clearly, but when we have all-time highs in other currencies, that means everybody is in the everyone's in the black, everyone's in profit. And there's not as much pressure to sell. Okay, so the propensity to hold is higher. Now, if it's with the euro and the yen and the Chinese yuan and who else? Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, all of these others that have the all-time high now, they are now have a low propensity to sell. So that is going to shift the demand, the supply function, and the demand is going to go up as well because all-time highs hit the headlines. People say, oh man, I better look at this. Oh, now I'm going to get some FOMO. And there's a lot of FOMO going on in the Chinese market. I can guarantee you that. We have a story about that below. But yeah, so it's very important. It changes the propensity to hold globally. And if the US dollar is the laggard, they're not the utmost laggard, like the Swiss franc is further away. Let's see. The Mexican peso is further away. That's surprising. And the Brazilian real is further away. I didn't know. I thought that was already at an all-time high, but it's But anyway, so these guys that have passed all-time high, they act as like an anchor or a grappling hook or whatever up there. And that gives the dollar price, the US dollar price, something to find support from and slowly scale its way up. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, that's that. Speaking of China here, China issues crypto ban warning as interest in Bitcoin surges. Now, I've talked about Bitcoin, or I've talked about China specifically in this regard a couple times now over the last few weeks. I did write a post for Bitcoin Magazine that was said, a surprising source of new Bitcoin demand is going to be from China. And in that article from Reuters that I wrote about there, they said that, Bitcoin is not banned in China. It's just sending money from your bank to the exchange. That's what's banned. So, yeah, this is a ban in that respect, but people can still buy it peer to peer. They can still go to Hong Kong. There's a limit on how much money you can send over to Hong Kong. I think it's 50,000 a year equivalent that you can send from mainland to Hong Kong. And then you can buy the Bitcoin products there. I mean, they have access to CME futures and they have access to other things there, probably these ETFs, the current new spot ETFs. So there is ways to do that. And they're seeing a lot of surge in demand. So much so that they're having to come out now and reiterate the ban. I think they've done it. I think this has hit the headlines maybe twice in the last 2 weeks, even story about this, them reiterating the ban because there's such high demand there. All right, let's roll down here. So, quoting from this Daily Coin article, I've never read anything from Daily Coin. Seems like a pretty cool website, at least. Well, the formatting and all that stuff is real nice on that. So, the report cited Beijing based lawyer Zhao Sa, stating that the sweeping ban on Bitcoin extended to overseas Bitcoin ETFs and that investors in the mainland area are not allowed to purchase such products directly. February's steep rise sparked surging interest from investors in mainland China who have remained active despite the government's rigid stance against Bitcoin. Bitcoin featured as a trending search term last week on multiple Chinese online platforms, including microblogging site Weibo, and multi-purpose app WeChat, where the term's popularity has surged more than fourfold. So they're getting some FOMO over there. And when you get FOMO and then you don't have access, it creates more FOMO. So, like some people, even like in the United States, their wealth advisors maybe are not allowing them to buy Bitcoin, not allowing them to have access, kind of like Vanguard, right? So, Vanguard or other wealth managers not allowing access creates more FOMO. China not allowing their people to buy Bitcoin creates more FOMO, more desire for capital flight. It's bad. It's bad news for them. It's good news for Bitcoin. Okay, next story. Ethereum talking about changing their monetary policy again. If you can't see the video, here's the original tweet. I put that in there for email people. But should we watch this? Nah, I'll just talk to you about it. So this guy down here in the bottom left, he's some Ethereum developer, and he's talking about arbitrarily changing the monetary policy. And he's admitting that they arbitrarily changed it many times, and they're going to do it again. And these guys are all laughing and smiling and, oh, look how funny this is. You saying it's arbitrary. That's true. It kind of was. Ha 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 ha. Well, Bitcoiners have been saying that the whole time. And stand by 1 second. I have to yell at this dog. All right. My daughter is supposed to be taking care of the dog, and I don't think she's doing it. But anyway, okay. Where was I? For years, Bitcoiners have been saying that the issuance was based on a centralized, arbitrary decision. And now they admit it and they laugh about it and they joke about it. I've said for years that they should not have targeted minimum viable issuance. They should have targeted maximum viable issuance because it would still be viable, right? Maximum viable issuance, the most inflation that they could stand without adversely affecting the price of their token. So because their Ponzi ecosystem depended on the inflationary stimulus. They could take that ETH that was inflationary and they could roll it into projects. Investors or early investors, people that are buying Bitcoin or buying Ethereum, they have access to a lot more coins and they can pump it into other Ponzi's. They can pyramid on itself. But now with what is it, EIP 1559 that burns a lot of their fees, they're a lot of times they're deflationary, literally deflationary. And what does that do to a Ponzi? That sucks the air out of it. So they were wrong targeting this arbitrarily, And they're laughing about it, haha, laughing. We arbitrarily targeted this. But now what are they saying? They're saying that now they need to take it negative for real. Like from a monetary policy perspective, from a proof of stake perspective, they need to take it negative. This is going to absolutely destroy. I mean, I can't understand how people can watch these type of videos and listen to the Ethereum podcasts and not just come away with it's like completely centralized. I was listening to one of Jeff Schneider's recent videos. He went to ETH Denver and he's talking to a bunch of shitcoiners. And um, the guest, I don't remember his name, he was talking about how this technology is taking the intermediaries out. Yes, that's what Bitcoin does, but that's not what Ethereum does. Ethereum has an intermediary. It's the Ethereum Foundation. Okay. All of these altcoins have an intermediary. They're just changing one for the other. Bitcoin is the only thing that's truly decentralized. All right. What else do I say about this? If they want to pump ETH, they should increase the issuance. Get that inflationary stimulus into their ecosystem. I mean, they're losing all of the NFT volume to Bitcoin. I saw a stat or a graphic about Bitcoin's NFT market traded, I don't know, $32 million worth of tokens over a certain period of time. And Ethereum was only 22, so almost a third less. And then Solana was down at like 9 million, where Bitcoin's eating all of their lunch. So if they want to bring that activity back to Ethereum and they want to create this, reinflate their ecosystem, they need to increase their issuance. But what are they doing? They're talking about going negative with their issuance. It's totally ridiculous. I mean, it's a scam, so it is ridiculous anyway. But yeah, then these 30 somethings that are joking about monetary policy and they have no idea what they're talking about, and they want to be your central bankers. So, anyways, okay, that was Ethereum. I usually don't talk about altcoin stuff here on the show, but there you go. All right, let's get into my one macro headline for this week. And stand by, I got to yell at that damn dog again. All right, I'm back. If you could read my lips, shut that dog up. All right. Macro headline: March banking crisis is looming. And let me go to my chart here. I'm going to share this. We're going to go to Bitcoin and we're going to go to the weekly chart. I'm going to pull this back and get rid of these. You'll see these arrows here in a second when we go over the price more. But this vertical line right here, possible banking crisis, end of Q1. I've had this on my chart forever, guys. Probably since the end of Q3, maybe even before that, because of the timeline of this program and seasonality and all sorts of other things. And now we're starting to see that other people are seeing this. I've been talking about this for 6 months to a year and actually had the line on my chart. I mean, there's some people that don't even have a halving line on their charts for Bitcoin. You have to have that. I think that's mandatory. But this, nobody's been talking about this. All right, let's go back to this. All right, banking crisis. The bank term lending program ends on March 11th. There is still $163 billion out to struggling banks still in the program. It hasn't really come. I think a high might have been like 170 billion, but it's still up there at 163 billion. These banks have not been rolling this off. What's going to happen on March 11th, 7 days from now? Something bad might happen on that day. But seasonally, end of Q1 is a crunch point in the year. And I've talked a lot about seasonality here on the show. I'm big on seasonality. We have all these seasonal adjustments in all of our metrics. Well, if we got rid of the seasonal adjustments, it would just look like two peaks. End of Q1, end of Q3 would be where everything happens. But the seasonal adjustments hide this from us. Anyway, so COVID was in March, and then, or COVID hit, the COVID crash. Of course, then March of 2023, and then this year we'll see what happens. But of course, there's a lot of stuff that happens at the end of Q1 pretty much every year. The administration, not the Federal Reserve, is coming out warning that the banking system is not sound and resilient. Of course, they say it's sound and resilient, but they wouldn't have to say that if it were sound and resilient. It wouldn't cross their mind to say that if it were sound and resilient. So just the fact that they're saying it undermines what they're trying to signal and tells people that it's not sound and resilient. Excuse me. Still feeling a little bit under the weather, guys. I think I had COVID actually, but I don't know. Also, New York Community Bank, who bought the troubled Signature Bank last year and is probably neck deep in this bank term funding program, is crashing. This is the first, not the last, for March. So this is from Joe Consorti via Bloomberg. So they're tumbling on commercial real estate woes and just banking crisis woes. So this is, it's not surprising that they are the ones that bought Signature Bank last year. I've had this line on my chart for at least 6 months, the possible March 2024 banking crisis. Last year, Bitcoin rallied 40% when that BTFP was created. So it was created on March 10th, and that was a low for Bitcoin. Let me go back to the chart here real quick, and we'll go to the daily chart, and we'll zoom out here, and we'll go to March of last year. All right. So March 10th, the bottom of Bitcoin is when this BTFP was announced, and boom, look what happened. So Bitcoin will probably perform pretty well during this year's banking crisis that I am expecting. All right, so that was it for macro headlines. Let's go on to price, what everybody probably wants to talk about. And we'll take another look at the live chart here in just a second. So last week I said everything has room to rally significantly from here. I see little downside risk other than a crisis event or external market shock, like something that happens to the global market, some sort of red or black swan event or something like that. But internally, Bitcoin, there is very little downside risk right now, maybe more so this week. But yeah, we'll cover that in the chart. Nothing goes up in a straight line. It is easy to get very hyped for the all-time high coming up. It has crossed the all-time high in most other currencies already. None of them faced any rejection at all. I think USD will be different. Okay, on last week's Market Proton, this is the premium newsletter that I put out. That came out on Wednesday after the 3 big days. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday were the 3 big days last week. And then Wednesday afternoon is when that Proton came out. And I was somewhat bearish. Everything has gone right back to overheated. So I'm big on indicators. And let me see what these charts show. Okay, let's pull this up. So after the 3 big updates, so see, back here, beginning of February, it was coming up, and I'm like, this is overheated. It needs to cool down, right? We're coming up here, keeps going up, 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 up. Then we get this sideways action, and we cooled down back into neutral territory for the RSI. And then it came right back up, back to overheated again, very, very quickly. Now it's trying to push again, but there is some bearish divergence possibility here. So what was I saying? That everything has gone right back to overheated. I said in the Proton that RSI must cool off. A perfect story would be for one more push into the USD all-time high, then come back to 62,000 and go sideways for a while. Everyone will be screaming double top, and I guess it's more a triple top, but Bitcoin is too volatile. Then it turns around and blows right through it. We are right back in that position again. The price continues to press higher while the indicators cannot cool off. That is setting us up for a larger surprise in the near future, in my opinion. So we looked at that one. I do want price to rip through the all-time high and continue to 100K ASAP. Of course, we all want that. But it looks more likely that some volatility is coming. ETF buyers must be tested, so they don't get a free chance. All the ETF buyers are in the black. They're all sitting pretty in profit, and they need to be tested. It just can't go from launch to 100K without testing these people's hands. So that needs to come. There is no free lunch in this game. The weekly is also extremely overbought. It's possible we have 2 more weeks of big gains according to the weekly chart, but it has to come to an end soon. Again, I always say we can correct through price or time. If we expect the looming banking crisis to be good for Bitcoin, now I'm tying together these two strands. So the coming banking crisis is good for Bitcoin. If we expect that to come in this month and be good for Bitcoin, and then the halving also be good for Bitcoin, we are getting short on time available to cool off the RSI. So I hope that makes sense. Let me bring this up. So this weekly RSI is at 87. That is extremely high. I think the highest in Bitcoin's history is 94. So it can go up. It does have, like I say, it could go up for 2 more weeks on the RSI. That's possible. It would be very, very high. It would be a significant top. A significant top. But if we expect this banking crisis to be good for Bitcoin and the halving to be good for Bitcoin, we need to cool this off quickly down to 70 before that happens, because we just don't have time. We don't have room to keep going up like this week after week after week. We can't go up 10% a week. It's just not going to happen. We're going to have a down week. So that's what I'm kind of trying to say here. On the chart below, I highlighted 2 weeks that were not big sell-offs, but did allow the RSI to cool down in a sideways manner. So you can see these 2 red weeks, they were down. This was actually the ETF launch week right here. It did come down, but it still was a sideways consolidation. So we could see something like that. Just come down to 62,000, like I said. 62,000 and sideways for a couple weeks, we would be back down into neutral territory and then have more time to get these big weeks coming in the March banking crisis and for the halving. Okay. Let me maximize that for Telegram. Okay, where was I? I don't think we have that time this time, though. Therefore, I have to do it. I have to call for a sell-off. Just going back, thinking what I was thinking when I was writing that. We could touch the all-time high or even pass it by a little bit. All-time high is 69,000. We could go to 69,200, maybe 300, maybe 500. Get everybody coming in who's going to long the all-time high, because there are a lot of people that want to long the all-time high. Get those people in, catch them, come back down to 62,000. That would be crazy. I mean, that I can see that narrative happening. Then the RSI cools off. All the other metrics are cooling off. The miners aren't performing spectacularly right now. So that can be telling us something. So catch those longs at the all-time high, come back down and to 62,000, consolidate, then go higher when everyone's talking double top, double top. Okay. But I think it's most likely that daily and weekly RSI will cool off very soon. We went over that chart. Okay. And this is also very interesting here. So Low Strife, he has this tweet. And I just want to read what I wrote about it here. Low Strife is an OG in the space. He's a little too shitcoining for my taste, but as discussed on Telegram over the weekend, my track record for calling prices in altcoins is not the best. I don't understand pure hype and fraud marketing, I guess. Anyway, Low Strife here points out that we've never not rejected from the first attempt at a new all-time high. We've never not rejected. And here are the individual images that he uses. So you can see it comes up here. This is, when is this? Back in like 2011. The previous high was $32. Touched it, rejected all the way down here to, it looks like below 28. So what percentage is that? That's like 15, 20%, right? Whatever it is. That's a lot. A big wick down on that first attempt. Then we go back up. All right, next one we have here is, this is going up to the Mount Gox high, right? I think so, yeah. And the all-time high up here at 1200 fell all the way down to 740, 750. That's a very significant drop. Then we recovered and go back higher. Okay. This one is from roughly 2016. And we go up even before we got to the all-time high. We go up, come back down, significant from 19,000 down to 16,000. Then we tap it again, or we tap it for real this time, back down to 17,000. Then we go through it. Okay, so again, what he's showing here is that we have never not rejected on the first attempt at a new all-time high. So now if we go back to, let's see, which chart should we say? Let's use this one. So I can see tapping the all-time high, like we just discussed, tapping it, maybe going a little bit above it, trapping a bunch of longs, people long in the all-time high, and then we make them pay, come back down to 62,000, maybe even 60,000, something like that for a brief period. I'm talking a week. Then we rally all the way through the all-time high and go on to higher highs. Not popular opinion. I get it. But that's what we got. That's what I have for price this week. Let's go on to Bitcoin mining. So we have some really good headlines for Bitcoin mining. Riot and Texas miners win against the U.S. government's attempts at data collection. This is huge news, people. And if you didn't see this, I mean, I can't believe it that it happened this quickly. The EIA, I think it was the Energy Department of the United States, actually settled this and dropped everything. They canceled everything that they're trying to do with the miners. They're going to open up a comment period. They're going to destroy all the data that they have collected. But this was a gigantic win. I mean, they didn't win. The judge didn't find in their favor. The agency actually canceled it. They canceled the project. I mean, they wouldn't do that if they thought they were going to win, right? Anyway, last week I reported on the suspension of the survey. So the court actually did say that you had to suspend, and they were going to look at the case. And then it didn't take long after that. The government withdrew their attempt and settled with the plaintiffs. So this is from the actual page or the actual settlement, and I linked to it in the bullet point. The agreement sets forth that the EIA has discontinued, that is, formally withdrawn and ceased the emergency collection, and that OMB has approved and the discontinuance, As a result of the discontinuance, no person or entity is subject to any obligation to respond to Form blah, 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 blah. The agreement further sets forth that in the letter from the EIA, Administrator DeCarolis, formally requesting approval of the discontinuance, the EIA explained that it, quote, has decided that it will not proceed through the emergency collection procedures set forth in this statute or ruling or whatever. Maybe that's from the president. So I don't know. This says U.S. code, but I don't know what all the numbers are. With respect to an information collection covering data of the type described in Form 862. The EIA explained that it will, quote, proceed through the PRA's notice and comment procedures to determine whether a request that OMB approve any collection of information covering such data. So they are stopping cold turkey. They are going to destroy all of the information that they have collected. And this is a gigantic win for Riot and Texas miners. You know, I think it was last week I was talking about how litigious the United States is. It worked. It worked. I mean, there's lots of problems. Don't get me wrong. There are lots and lots of problems with the U.S. system, with the way it's being used right now, overstepping of government regulation and all that. But, I mean, this can't happen in China. There's no way that a private company could sue and get them to completely withdraw, destroy all the evidence, this would never happen in China. It would never happen in most countries, I would say. So this is a huge win, I think, for Bitcoin. Okay. Next, excuse me. Next mining story, BitDeer, they announced a 4 nanometer chip. Now, I thought that wasn't 7 nanometers the smallest? I know that there is a limit with the physics, and I thought that maybe 4 nanometer is the limit, but there is a limit where the electrons will jump, right? They'll like jump across the space. Maybe 4 nanometer is the smallest. Let me know down below, guys, in the comments if what that is. But okay, this is to quote from their tweet here. So they say, excuse me. This powerful chip offers enhanced Bitcoin mining performance with minimized power consumption, leading to lower operating costs and a reduced environmental footprint for miners. That's a lot of buzzwords. The Seal 01 chip will seamlessly integrate into our upcoming mining rig, the Seal Miner A1. Okay, so obviously this is marketing for them, but 4 nanometers is pretty impressive. I don't think any other company does 4 nanometers. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys. I will be looking at the chat when I get through this. Okay, next, not next section, but next part of the mining section is hash rate and difficulty. Hash rate growth has stalled over the past month after 2 large difficulty adjustments higher of +7 and +8. We had a negative 3% adjustment last Thursday. The current pace will lead to another negative 1% drop in 10 days. So let's take a look at this. This is from mempool.space and their charts. I really like these, but sometimes they have problems with the data. But anyway, you can see that hash rates, let's see, right at the beginning of February, peaked out, all-time high, and then kind of came down. That's the most volatile line here. And then you have the moving average. But it came down, and now it's stabilized here. After those 2 big adjustments higher, we had one lower, and we're probably going to have another one lower, at least 1%. But I don't think this means anything like miners are unhealthy or anything of that nature. I think that it is just the ebbs and the flows of the Bitcoin mining industry. All right. So that's hash rate and difficulty. Mempool increased slightly this week along with fees. The fees were under $2 for confirmation in next block, and now they're about $4. So you can see way over here, this is a 6-month chart, but way over here, the last couple weeks, it has gone back higher again, but nothing like over here, okay? Back at the end of 2023 and beginning of 2024, up until February, it really came down. And so we're doing fine. We're doing just fine right now on the mempool. Inscriptions. So the number of daily inscriptions has really fallen. Last week caused the monthly average on the chart to drop significantly. There will likely be another period of higher volumes in the future at some point for inscriptions, but as of now, there's no real market for these things. They are a waste of money, in my opinion. But let's take a look at this. You see the dark brown line is the moving average, the 1 month moving average, and it's just collapsing here. Back at this point, August, September, and October, I guess this would be September, October of 2023, was when that bug was exploited, I guess, in Ordinal's protocol. And it wasn't fixed by Casey Rodamore. And so that's why this drop happened right here. But this one isn't from anything like that. It's just an apathy. It's lack of product market fit. It's lack of a market at all for these things. Like I said, that the Bitcoin and NFT market is bigger than the Ethereum NFT market and the Solana NFT market combined right now. And this is an example of what's going on with the NFT market. It's collapsing all across the board. This is a Bitcoin rally here. This is a Bitcoin cycle. And yeah, so that's that. Fees paid by inscriptions increased last week very slightly despite lower volumes. So lower volumes, but higher prices paid in fees. They're still under 5 million a week. And let's take a look at this chart. You see just a little bit higher, but still under half of this section would be 5 million. So it's about 2.5 to 3 million spent on inscriptions last week. Nothing significant. And that's it for the report. Let me check out the chat, guys. So I gotta minimize the screen. Take a look here. Dex Invictus, let's go. Let's go. John Delaney. It's just fine. Let the ETH people wreck themselves. Yeah, I agree. I think I was more, Bitcoiners go through these phases. And in the beginning, I think I think the first phase is you want to be right. And so you try to convince people that you are right and Bitcoin is the best thing and whatever. Then it gets into a feeling of loss or whatever, that you don't want those people to be hurt. You don't want those people to be scammed. And so you speak up because you don't want them to be scammed. I think the third phase is more like what John Delaney is saying here, a little bit more apathy towards them. They're going to get what they deserve. They didn't listen, that type of thing. Maybe there's a fourth stage. I don't know what that is, but that's interesting. Good old Ponzi-nomics. True. Bitcoin and chill. Indeed, young Rizzo. Okay, let me check out Telegram and see if they have anything in there. That dog is going to be the death of me. I hate that thing. Okay, Reed said, in 2020, we spent almost a month within 10% of the all-time high. I don't see that long of a delay, but definitely could pause before new all-time high. Also could melt faces and rip to 100K this week. Yeah. Let's take a look at the chart here, the live chart. Back here, reset. 67,722. We're getting close to that all-time high line. This is a thing that's concerning, though, this RSI. And it's not just the daily. This is extremely overheated. the fact that the RSI on the weekly is higher than the overheated RSI on the daily is concerning to me. And actually, Telegram, maybe it's when I have this. Did it go blank for you guys? Let's see if I did that. Hold on. No, it's working. It's working. Sorry. Okay, maximize. Yeah, I mean, the weekly is just, this is huge. It is getting up to, where are we at? 87. Let's zoom out and see where these other highs are. So you can see these highs for the weekly RSI. And yes, it is not 100%. This is not like a true science. This is a study of Schelling points, a study of momentum, a study of other things, and back testing. I mean, if weekly RSI gets to 94, which this was 94 here, and then these two back here in 2013 were 94. If the weekly RSI gets that high, it's probably a very, very significant top. I mean, you could put odds on that it's 95% that it's going to be a significant top, like a blow off top. And I don't want to blow off top right now because we're not going to go to 200,000 this week, but we could go to 200,000 in this cycle. Even in this next 6 months, we could get to 100K, right? So if we have a significant blow off top right now, that ends the cycle, at least for many months. And I just don't see that happening. So with all of those things, you had to say, okay, well, what's the most likely thing? It's probably not going to keep going up. It's probably going to have a cool off period, and we're going to come back down here into the mid 70s or even touch back into the normal range. So that's what I'm thinking. All right, what else we got? Okay, Joachim said KT Morley's futuristic chapter in 21 Futures also had Finnies. Finnies are new on the blockchain, a subdivide of sats named after Hal Finney that came to be an upgrade to SHA 512. Interesting, man. I haven't, obviously I haven't heard of that or read of that, but so Finnies are subsats in this. That's cool. I just hope that Hal Finney does get some sort of denomination. I think that's very important. I don't know if we're going to need, I mean, I think the Lightning Network, and if there's some like high frequency type of use of Bitcoin, like pay per click or pay per minute of watching a video or something like that, and streaming of sats, I think that could require sub-sat denominations, but probably sats will be small enough to be $1 or 50 cents or even a quarter worth of purchasing power, and then you don't really need sat denomination. But anyway, I hope your dog's called ETH. No, her name is Penny, and she's a little brat, and she's loud, and she wants attention, and the kids get home from school and she wants attention. She just barks. Anyways, MSTR joins the S&P 500, then a ton of U.S. workers will be contributing passively, and Saylor will keep buying and not selling. Very true. Very true. MSTR, we were talking a little bit before we went live with on Telegram, and I think MSTR and Coin are going to overperform here. Miners, I think, are going to lag behind the Bitcoin spot price, at least in the next 6 months or maybe even year, while Bitcoin rallies, MSTR rallies, and Coinbase rallies. But anyway, okay, let me double check and see if there's any more comments from the guys over there on YouTube or Rumble. And I don't see any. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm going to call it there for today. Don't forget bitcoinandmarkets.com for all of my content. Of course, there's a free tier where you get the newsletter. I actually want to talk about this real quick before we leave. One of the cool things we do with our paid members, $5 a month to support my content over here. You can get into our monthly price forecast competition. And so you just by the 5th, so by tomorrow, you have to get in your guess for the end of the month, the closing price of the monthly candle, and then you can win $20 in sats over the Lightning Network. I'm doing my part to keep Lightning Network going. But anyway, guys, check out the March price forecast competition. If you are a paid member, get your entry in. And let's see, what else did I want to plug? One more time, bmpro.substack.com. There is also a free tier there, but my stuff is on the paid tier. So I appreciate everybody that supports on there as well. All right, that's going to do it, guys. Have a good one. Peace.